What's going on, guys? This is KNasty3890 here. Welcome to a video today where I'm going to pretend I'm commissioner of Major League Baseball for one day and what I would do to change the game and make it better. It's not a perfect game. It's one of my favorite games. I love baseball. There are problems with the game, with the sport, that it's going in a bad direction in certain aspects, and I want to talk about how I would fix them. Now, I would love to hear in the comments what you guys would want to do to fix it. So make sure to meet me there. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let's just talk about it there. If you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And also, I am doing a giveaway for MLB 19. I'm giving it away on Twitter. Go check out my Twitter. A link is down in the description below. All you have to do is retweet and follow, retweet my pin tweet and follow my Twitter account, and you can get a digital copy of MLB The Show 19 about a week before it comes out. So if you have a PS4 and you want to get the game, you might be able to get it for free from me. Now, also, this video is sponsored by SeatGeek. If you guys didn't know, I sponsored with SeatGeek recently. You can get $20 off your first purchase with SeatGeek, that you can buy tickets to any sporting event. Spring training's about a month and a half away, so if you want to get tickets to see your team in Florida or Arizona, or any concerts or any sport, you can just use my promo code KNASTY, K-N-A-S-T-Y. A link to that is in the description below as well. So if you want to get some tickets, get $20 off your first purchase. Now, for me, if I was commissioner for a day, I have several things I want to talk about. First things first, I would add a pitch clock. Now, if you guys have been into minor league games the last couple years, they have a pitch clock. It's worked pretty well. You guys didn't know the pitch clock starts at 20 seconds. It will stop counting down once the pitcher starts his windup, or if they go from the stretch, start going from the stretch. So once the pitcher starts doing the whole windup thing, pitch clock stops. So if you got a guy like Daisuke Matsuzaka who took forever to go through his windup, that's fine. Now, another thing that happens with the pitch clock, it doesn't go on when there's someone on base, because then it's kind of like a red light, green light for a guy trying to steal second base. They know when the pitcher has to get off. So there's no pitch clock for that. So if you're worried about those things, just keep that in mind. The thing with the pitch clock that's great, it speeds up the game. A minor league game, now I know it's different than major leagues, it's not commercials, it's not televised. It does go a lot faster. You will notice it when you're at a minor league game that a pitch clock is there. It's very evident. When there's no one on base, these pitchers are going boom, 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 just throwing the ball in, catching it, throwing it back in, catching it from the catcher, throwing it back. It's awesome to watch. I really, like, if I was commissioner, I would put that in tomorrow. First thing I would do, first thing on my agenda, is put pitch clocks in. It would speed up the game, and that's the problem with these games. They take 3, 4, 5 hours. Now, I know that's an extreme, but on average, it's over 3 hours for a Major League Baseball game. A basketball game is under 2.5 hours. Same with hockey. Football's a little longer, but they're one game a week for 17 weeks. Baseball's 162 games. It's demanding to be a fan of a Major League Baseball team. If you want to watch all the games, it's demanding. It's a lot of time. And I think a pitch clock could really shorten the game, but still have the excitement of it. Because when there's no one on base, you have that built-up tension that sometimes it's actually good to have a little bit of an extra time, because it builds up more and more tension when there's people on base. Pitch clock doesn't affect that. But when it's the third inning, the start of the third inning, pitcher goes 1, 2, 3. Hopefully that inning doesn't take 10 minutes to go 1, 2, 3. Pitch clock maybe takes 2 or 3 minutes. That's when it's a lot better. The next thing I would want to do, and this is very similar to pitch clocks, it's about speeding up the game. It would be no warm-up pitches from the bullpen. Now, hear me out. But one thing that has been very new into baseball is relievers really taking over games. I personally don't have a problem with teams using a bunch of relievers. I know some people would want to limit how many you can use. I don't really like that idea. But what I would do instead is to speed up the game, because I think that's one thing, is it slows down the game. When a pitcher warms up in the bullpen, that's it. That's your warm-up. You don't then come to the mound and get 8 pitches on the real mound to make sure you're ready. No, you get none. Maybe I'll allow 1. That's if we want to have a little bit of an argument, you can have 1 pitch. Other than that, none. And another thing with that is you have to make sure all bullpen mounds are exactly the same as the regular mound that the pitchers will use. Now, I know it can be hard to make it exact, and pitchers throughout the game will have different landing spots, and that could affect it. And maybe there's a safety issue, so maybe the pitcher may have to look at the mound and make sure it's good, stuff like that. But I want the games faster. I know they have to jog in from the bullpen, but they're professional athletes. They are professional athletes. If they're like too winded, because when they jog in from the bullpen and they're too tired, eat a salad. You get paid to be an athlete. And the thing is with that, it will speed up the game when all these teams bring in their bullpen guys, especially a lot of guys come in, face one batter, no matter what. Strikes them out, gives up a hit, gives up a home run. They face one guy and they're out. But with this, I would also put in a rule that when the game's on TV, every game's on TV, but the TV providers for the game can't go to a commercial when there's a pitching change. It implies that they can't just go to commercial and then the pitcher who's on the mound has to wait for the game to get cleared from the TV exec saying, oh, we're still on commercial, you can't start the game yet. That wouldn't happen because they can't go to a commercial. That's one thing I think would help keep people in touch with the game. Once a half inning starts, you are watching the game until the half inning is over. If there's 10 pitching changes and the team scores 15 runs, there's no commercial breaks. They have to keep going to the bullpen, bring guys new in. Don't go to a commercial. Have the announcing crew talk about the game. They get paid a lot too. They can talk about the game for a minute or two while the guy's jogging in to start up, and he can talk to the catcher, talk to the pitching coach or the manager and see what he wants to do. No warm-up pitches. None of that. Let's keep the game moving, keep the game fresh, keep it at a solid pace. That's one thing I would also like to add. Next, I want to talk about things that you could trade, or just trading in general. First off, trading draft picks. You can trade, I believe, compensatory draft picks, or they're talking about that. I'm not sure if you can. I think you can, or you can trade Draftslot money. So money you get, or your bonus pool for drafting, you can get that. And you can also trade international signing pool money, which is nice, but I think you should be able to trade draft picks. And you're probably wondering, why is this important? Simple. The draft is one of the biggest things in football. It's one of the biggest things in basketball. It's pretty big in hockey. Now, baseball will never be on those levels. It's very obvious why. College baseball is nowhere close to as popular as college basketball and college football. Also, a lot of high schoolers get taken out of the college baseball draft. You probably don't know many of the baseball players, unless you have been following it closely because your team has a high pick, or you're just like a junkie like me who follows that stuff. For the most part, the average fan won't know even who the college baseball players are. However, if you know your team might trade something or someone, they could trade a guy off their major league roster for a high pick. Maybe they are going to be like, what if the Baltimore Orioles last year, when they traded Manny Machado, could have been like, you know what, we'll trade him to the Dodgers, but we want your first-round pick as well, and they get that extra first-round pick. Or maybe they trade it to a team that has a higher first-round pick, kind of like the Brewers had a higher first-round pick because they weren't as good the year before, and that could add value to the to the Orioles and what they got. And that would make it more interesting to watch. You are not only watching the players who are getting drafted, some players that you know or prospects might get traded as well. And that's only possible if the draft picks are able to be traded as well. The reason why you can't is because owners were afraid that the lower market teams that are always like at the bottom of payroll, who may be having a higher pick, would then just sell their draft pick basically. They would sell it for money. And you know what? I just don't think that will happen. Teams value young prospects and players so much, they wouldn't just sell it to get an extra $5 or $10 million. They would want something of substance and value. So I think it's wise to have that. Now, I don't think, like I mentioned, baseball draft will never be as popular as the football or the basketball one. It could be as entertaining or as watch as the NHL one, because the NHL is kind of the same thing. There are some high school players, but there's a lot of junior hockey players, which in Canada, that's a huge sport. In the United States, it's not as big, but kind of like in the South, college baseball is a lot bigger than in the North. It's kind of like that same idea. There's kind of like a split in the division of where you live, depending on how you know these players, but there should be still enough that people would watch it. So I think it could be a nice event for people to watch, and it could create action during the season of trade. It's kind of like a mini early trade deadline. Speaking of trade deadline, I would also move the trade deadline. It's currently July 31st for the most part. There's years it's a day or two off. I would move it to August 31st, the end of August. The reason is simple. Back when the July 31st trade line was implemented, there were only the division winners. I don't even think the wild card winners were in it, which means there were less teams involved in the playoff chase because there's only two teams, 2 or 3 teams, depending on, I think at the time there's only 2 divisions, and then they go to the championship series, who were eligible in each league to make the playoffs, which means there may be like 4 or 5 teams kind of in that hunt. They added the wild card team, that added another spot, which added 3 or 4 other teams in that little hunt to go into it, so there's less teams that are selling. In July, they might know in August, we're not going to make the playoffs. Now with 2 wild card teams, I'll bet like 5 teams realistically on July 31st could make a crazy run and still make the playoffs. It's happened before, and teams might sell it to their owners or sell it to their fans. However, on August 31st, if you're 10 games out, you're not going to make the playoffs. If you're 10 games out on July 31st, it's unlikely you make the playoffs. It could realistically still happen. So if you move the trade deadline back to August 31st, there would be more action in the trades, just in theory. Now, and we'd also get rid of the stupid waiver trade deadline, which I never liked. And that's something I would just like to get rid of. The waiver deadline, just make that the end actual trade deadline. There would be less action in July because deadlines spur action. But I still think, and all in all, it would create for more trades, better trades, and interesting trades. So I'm all in for that. Another thing I'd want to get rid of is September call-ups. I understand the logic of it. You get more players called up so that they can get some more service time in or get a kind of cup of coffee before they may start the next year in the bigs. But that kind of doesn't happen anymore because like the big prospects, teams will keep them down. They don't want them to start their service time in that September unless they're in a playoff chase. And they won't even start them at the beginning of next year because of the whole service time thing. Now, it's kind of, I'm not sure if that's something we could change. They're always going to fool around with the service time. But why have 40-man rosters in September? Why do those games change from games in March, April through August? And these games are really important. Now, from a lot of teams, they may not matter. But for some teams, it's really important. And the fact they have 40 players, so they have extra pitchers, extra bats off the bench. And a guy, they could have a designated guy to come in who can't really hit, but can fly, can run. And they can have him on their bench to help them win a game or two in September when normally they wouldn't be on the team. Or if they were, they're taking up a valuable 1 of 25 spot instead of 1 of 40. It makes no sense why they have that anymore. Get rid of that. It's a very simple thing. They should do that immediately. That just bugs me why that's even a thought. They put that in to begin with. It just makes no sense nowadays. And this might be the biggest thing I'm talking about here. It is having fun in baseball. I hate the unwritten rules of baseball. Not all of them. Some of them I understand. Some of them are so old that we only follow it because we're told to follow it without the logic behind it. It's like when I hear someone say the unwritten rules of baseball, I instantly think of Old Man Yells at Clouds from The Simpsons. It's instantly what I think of. They say, for instance, don't pimp a home run. Don't showboat around the bases. Put your head down and run around the bases. Pretend like you've been there before. Why? Go watch Winter League Baseball. You see the highlights of it. It is so much fun just to see how happy these guys genuinely are when they do something amazing. Watch the World Series. Now, I know it's the World Series and not a game in May. But when Puig hits a bomb off Eduardo Rodriguez, his hands are in the air. And Eduardo Rodriguez is throwing his glove into the ground in frustration. I'm a Red Sox fan, and that hurt watching it. And I had no problem with Puig putting his hands up. He hit a big home run, and he's excited about it. If you hit a home run in May that helps you win a game, be excited about it. Flip your bat. Jog around the bases. Pimp a home run. Talk a little smack. In basketball, that's thought of. That's like cool. You talk smack. Football, it's the same. Hockey, it's to an extent, not as much. But in baseball, if you do it, the next time you're up to bat, hit him, throw a pitch at his ears or at his head, or hit him in the ass with a pitch. So because that guy did his job better than you and is happy about it, you then have to physically hurt him. Why? That makes no sense. Now, as a commissioner, you're wondering, how could you implement this? There's a couple ways. One, send a memo to all 30 teams saying, just basically saying what I just said. Enjoy the game. Have fun. Encourage your players to have fun. Encourage them to not be upset when a player on their own team or another team shows emotion. And then two, another thing I would do, if you see someone act out at a player because they show emotion, there's instances with I think Brian McCann literally stood in front of home plate when Carlos Gomez hit a home run because he was pimping it. That guy, suspend him for 10 or 15 games, but let him know beforehand it's a harsh suspension if you're anti-funner or something like that. Or if you find a guy who purposely threw at a batter, you think he threw at a batter on purpose because he hit a home run. Like what happened with Ronald Acuna last year with the Marlins. That was because he kept hitting home runs and he takes a sweet time around the bases and kind of has fun with the game. Because there's apparently something wrong with that. He got hit by a pitch. Now you can argue maybe he got hit because they were tired of giving up home runs. Maybe, but he also was kind of showboating. But if you find out like a player did that, or you think a player's purposely trying to like regulate the game because players are having fun or showing emotion, suspend them or fine them a large amount, but put this in writing before the season starts. Players know this, that way they can't be that upset when it happens. Because if you tell a player you're going to be suspended for 10 games if you have a problem with what I want to implement of having players having more fun, and then they do something and then you suspend them for the 10 games, they can't be upset. They saw it coming. And you know what? If they want to be dinosaurs about the game, let them be. They'll die off. And maybe the last thing I would add, and this one's not huge, I kind of want to put as maybe like an honorable mention out, what I would do is get rid of C-flap helmets. If you're wondering what a C-flap helmet is, that's it right there. Now, a C-flap helmet was basically brought in because players were worried about getting hit on the side of the face. I know like Giancarlo Stanton did get hit there, and I understand it's a safety reason why players are doing it. And it started off with him having like a couple bars, and then it turned into a whole giant piece of plastic there, or rubber, whatever they use. The problem is, baseball has an image problem. People don't know who Mike Trout is. Like, if you see Mike, a lot of people who are just casual baseball fans see Mike Trout walking down the street, they have no clue who he is. Now, he wears a hat all day, and he wears a helmet, and now he wears a C-flap helmet, which blocks off half his face and his head. So when he's batting, you don't see his face. So I would like to have the game more easier for people to recognize a player. And I think Major League Baseball needs to do a better job of kind of expressing or showing players. And I think having fun or emotion will kind of do that, bring up players. You'll know who this player is because they do this when they hit a home run, stuff like that. But we should know who these players are, and it's hard when half their face is covered up with a helmet. So I would just go back to the normal ear flaps if we can. Now that's a safety issue. If you want to argue it's a safety issue, that's why it's kind of like an honorable mention. I understand that. Or maybe say no future players can have it unless they have like a reason, like they've been hit in the face before. Like Stanton got hit in the face, and maybe he needs it for just like his mind, like or safety because he gets hit there, it kind of could cause problems in the future. That I understand. But maybe moving forward, I'll have every player, because I bet you within 10 years, every player is going to have that C-flap helmet, and then we're going to be able to like not know what a player's face looks like when they're batting, because they always have that on. So that's a small little thing. Like if you don't want to include it, I understand. It's just I want to make sure the image of players is, you can see a player and you know who he is. And I feel like when everyone has those C-flap helmets on, it's impossible to see who's batting. So that's it for my video, guys, of me being a commissioner for one day. That's what I would do. It would be a busy day. I'd put a full 24 hours in. Like I said, I want to hear in the comments what you would do if you were commissioner. If you guys did enjoy this, please drop a like on the video. Like I mentioned, subscribe if you're new. Enter that giveaway. And I'll talk to you later, boys. Take it easy. Peace.